Our first and only reading tonight is Exodus chapter 12. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, "This month shall mark for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you. Tell the whole congregation of Israel that on the 10th of this month they are to take a lamb for each family, a lamb for each household. If a household is too small for a whole lamb, it shall join its closest neighbor in obtaining one. The lamb shall be divided in proportion to the number of people who eat it. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a year-old male. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats. You shall keep it until the 14th day of this month. Then the whole assembled congregation of Israel shall slaughter it at twilight. They shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they eat. They shall eat the lamb that same night. They shall eat it roasted over the fire with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled in water, but roasted over the fire with its head, legs, and inner organs. You shall let none of it remain until the morning. Anything that remains until the morning you shall burn with fire. This is how you shall eat it: your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And you shall eat hurriedly. It is the Passover of the Lord. I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike down every firstborn in the land of Egypt, from human to animal, and on all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you live. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague shall destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. This day shall be a day of remembrance for you. You shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord. Throughout your generations you shall observe it as a perpetual ordinance." Here ends the reading. Grace and peace to you, sisters and brothers in Christ. Most years, on Maundy Thursday, we reflect on the original Maundy Thursday, that Thursday in Holy Week between Palm Sunday and the crucifixion, the last night that Jesus spent with his disciples, or, as we very often call it, the night in which he was betrayed. We have John's account. That's what we usually read. That's where Jesus washes the disciples' feet and commands them, "Love one another as I have loved you." We could bring in the other gospel accounts. It's where Jesus institutes communion. But we usually read from 1 Corinthians 11. That's where we find the words of institution, the basis of our communion liturgy. We give a whole evening to remembering something that, at Jesus' direction, we remember fairly regularly. We break and give bread, we pour and share wine, we do it in remembrance of him. So tonight, to mix things up, do something a little bit different. We'll get back to Maundy Thursday, but let's shift our focus to a precursor, something from the story of Exodus. And you know this one. It's in Moses' story while they're still in Egypt. He's implored Pharaoh on behalf of God to let the Hebrew people go, but Pharaoh resists that. Instead, he holds them in captivity. He forces them to work as slaves because he fears their numbers. As if all that weren't enough, for quite some time, he's had newborn Hebrew boys killed. This is an evil man implementing atrocities against a vulnerable and oppressed group that's under his authority and his responsibility. It just keeps getting worse the more you read. The mandate is clear, but he refuses to hear it. So God sends plagues to make him hear it. The consequence of this kind of tyranny, with or without God's intervention, is that people will suffer, and eventually it comes crashing down. But God, on occasion, will speed these downfalls along. He speeds it up with other hardships. Water turns to blood, lice, flies, locusts swarm about, hail falls, livestock falls ill, and then finally, an eye for an eye. If Pharaoh will kill Hebrew boys, the angel of death shall be sent to kill Egyptian boys, specifically the oldest boy of each household. Now, at this point, we should take a step outside our story, because that doesn't sound like the loving, soft God we're used to, right? We usually talk about God and think about God through our distinctly Christian lenses. Specifically now, I'm talking about how the early church, right from the start, took two cultures, Israelite and Hellenist, like the Greek and the Roman, and put them together. Christian theology, right from the beginning, and there's been resurgences of this a few times throughout history in big, big ways, embraced Greek philosophy. That's how Christian theologians thought about the world and God and everything else, was through the same kind of arguments. So we often conceive of God as though God were merely, concept. Like Aristotle's unmoved mover, the first cause that sets everything else in motion, and then maybe not much more. Or on the other hand, we go to the other extreme. Maybe when we think of our day-to-day life, our first presumption at the top of the list is that, God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good. And therefore, when we're evaluating anything, you name it, whatever happens, it's for a reason, it's for the best, part of a plan, God's will. That doesn't always work out so great. So these ideas that God is the unmoved mover, the ultimate authority, holds ultimate power and knowledge and goodness, those are all true claims. They're just not the whole story. See, from God walking in the garden alongside Adam and Eve and not sure where they're at, to the Son of God incarnate in Jesus Christ, to today, God listening and responding to prayers. God has chosen to self-limit from the very beginning. And Exodus is written from the perspective that the Pharaoh is speaking on behalf of Egyptian gods, a pantheon of gods, while Moses speaks on behalf of one true God above all others. See, this isn't just a deal about right and wrong. It's a contest of will and power, and God self-limits. God resists the urge to merely snap God's metaphorical fingers and reshape Egypt, reshape the Israelite people, reshape whatever aspect of life, of reality, you name it. And instead, plays by earthly rules, pushing, prodding, giving orders, speeding up this demise of Pharaoh's tyrannical rule. While Pharaoh would send a soldier, like a foot soldier, to execute a baby Israelite, God sends an angel of death. And such a soldier would need direction. Such a profound act of aggression would require precision. And it's in this context of God self-limiting, of God entering a contest with competing claims of divinity and authority, but refusing to just snap the fingers and win. It's in all that we find the institution of Passover. The Israelite people are instructed to make a sacrifice within the household or shared between households, how to cook it, how to eat it, all this. And in there we find, use the blood to mark their household. So when this plague comes, when God's counter-aggression arrives, it would mark the households to spare. It's insider language. Others might notice the blood, but they don't need to know what it means. Those strange Israelites doing strange things. Only those on the know, those who need to know, will know. Then this command comes to repeat the ritual again every year. By turning it into a tradition right from the start, it becomes a legacy, a living memory. It gets woven into the fabric of the culture. It's part of the identity of the people. Part of their identity is remembering this event. Not merely as memory, but something that's lived out again and again that informs their lives and forms their relationship with God. So we can play a little game of alternative history. Could God have simply changed the hearts and minds of everyone in Egypt, Pharaoh included? Could God have known which households had Israelites living in them, regardless of sacrifice, regardless of whether they listened, whether they participated in all this? Of course. But God didn't. That's not how it went down. In God's self-limiting, there was a need for humanity to participate, to help accomplish their own liberation, to reach back out to God. So this is going to sound a little bit strange, but I believe once we've accepted all those premises within the story, we can safely come to this conclusion. The marking of the doorways was as much, if not more, for God as it was for the Israelites. It enabled God to both self-limit for all the reasons God might, to not just know all this, and give people agency. Right? You have a choice. You can do this or not. You are not subject just to chaos. It's not all random, but you're also not living in a world where God's just going to snap his fingers, right? So you can trust these words, heed this call, and you will be saved if you participate. Now, if we can accept how wild that is, that God would want that help to know who's in which households, then the institution of Passover, it would follow, was not just for the Israelite people, but also for God. Contrary to that God of philosophical concept that we find, in our Christian thinking, the Bible shows us again and again that God can use reminding. Please, from the prophets and psalmists alike, they call God to remember. Remember your word, remember your promises, remember your character, remember your past, remember that we are your people. The Passover rituals, therefore, serve to unite the community with God in both directions, both plea and reminder that these are God's people and God may deliver them as of old. They need to know it, and God can be reminded of it. Without ritual, you know that life would just be one day after another. We use rituals to separate periods of time, to mark transitions, to remind ourselves to stop and take notice at least every once in a while that life is not just monotony. It's not just mundane, rote, boring. The stuff we do matters. Our words, our beliefs, our community, our impact on the world, it's all intertwined and has significance. Passover was an event that marked God releasing them from bondage, not just another day. Passover as a holiday, a tradition, was instituted so that the same people and the same God might remember and be intertwined henceforth. This is a defining moment in their relationship. So what about us? As esoteric and out there as all that was, we can draw rather straight lines from all that to tonight, to the Maundy Thursday stuff. Because Maundy Thursday was originally a Seder dinner. It was a celebration of the Passover. Jesus taking the bread and the wine was in the same form as Jewish worship services. That's how they were practiced at the time. Jesus talks about his blood, much like we talk about the blood of the Lamb, that it marks a new relationship, a covenantal relationship between God and humanity. It marks out who is in. It's a relationship between God and whoever would engage in the practice. Jesus tells us to do this in remembrance of him, just like Exodus said to do Passover. Now, we Lutherans, like our Catholic and Orthodox forebears, we've put a ton of emphasis on what communion does, and it's usually in terms like this. It's the means of grace. It's the vehicle by which God delivers God's grace, right? Hope, forgiveness, comfort. To engage in the sacrament as community means that we have these assurances from God, these gifts from God. It's something God gives to us. And yet, despite the words, I'm not so sure that we're as quick to do this in remembrance, to treat it as an institution that's woven into the fabric of who we are as community, as church, to point us back to what happened in the past. That when we join together in remembrance of Christ, we're remembering what the sacrifice, the promises, all the rest. When we do communion, I, as ordained minister, remind you that on this Maundy Thursday, we as God's people are reminding God to take note that the blood of the Lamb, the blood of Christ, it doesn't just mark our house. It's all over the house. It's in, with, and under the elements. It's in, with, and through us. It's in and around this cherished and revered holy space. It connects us to our shut-ins and our beloved dead, to everyone who's here tonight, everyone who can't be, to God's saints of every time and place, all of us, a great chorus of witnesses crying out to God in this institution we were given. We remember. And we bid you, O Lord, to remember too. On this night, 2,000 years ago, humanity and divinity were intertwined, and perfect innocence was victimized by the tyranny of evil men. But God delivered as God has delivered in the past, and God will deliver again. So we remember and we remind. We give thanks and we give our pleas. That event anchors us together as a people and as a people in relationship with God. Amen.
Saints have dwelt secure.